What is going on, guys? Joey Franzel here with Flex Training Systems, and today we are talking about the long discussed, the long debated, the long pondered upon kilos versus pounds debate. Does it really matter? What should we be thinking about when we're going to decide if we're going to use kilos or pounds? I'm going to talk about it um, in this video. With that being said, let's get right into it. Kilos versus pounds. Does it really matter? How does this apply to competition? So first off, I think we need to take a look at what is the end goal. Okay, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do with our lifting? What do we want to do? If you are someone who you lift for fun, you like to do power lifts for fun, you follow it, but you don't really plan on competing. It doesn't matter what you use. Some things that you may find though, for some people, especially people that are particularly strong, it is a lot more difficult to control pounds because of the way that the weights are distributed. Something to think about. Have you guys ever tried to pick up an object that wasn't a dumbbell that weighed around the weight of a significant dumbbell? So, for example, many moons ago, over the summer, I wanted to make some extra money. I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time, and I did some roofing. Um, Roofing is a very fucking hard physical thing to do, and I remember we had to carry these 80-pound bags of shingles onto a roof on a ladder. And, I could throw around 80-pound dumbbells all day, but because the weight is so distributed, like the way that it is, like it was like a large rectangle that was not a stable structure. Like it was malleable. Um, it was really hard to move it around. It was a lot harder than just picking up a dumbbell. So that's something to consider. The more compact and the smaller the weights are, the more dense they are. They're going to be a little bit easier to manage on the bar versus something that's bigger. Not always. There are some exceptions. For example, in the deadlift, it's a little bit easier to pull on a deadlift bar, for example, on pounds because the point at which you break the floor is a little bit higher up than normal. Also, the way that you load your body is going to be, it's like a lot more gradual on a deadlift bar. Versus when you're pulling on a stiff bar, it's like 100 to 0. You're either lifting all of it at the same time, or most of it at the same time, or it's not, or you're not moving it. So, if you are a recreational lifter, I would say just try them both and see what you like. I would say in the beginning of your career, um, maybe you don't even need kilos actually. It might even be better if you leave it for, if there's people in your gym that are super strong and, they need those weights. It could possibly be safer if they have it, so I would save it for them. At the same time, I guess everybody has a right to use it. But, if you're only benching 135, whether it's on a blue plate or a pound, like one 145 on each side, I don't think it's not gonna matter. The bar's not gonna bend. You're not gonna have to deal with physics as much in that scenario. I would say, even deadlifting, if you're not going into like 450, 500 pounds, it really doesn't matter what kind of equipment you're gonna use. It shouldn't be too bad. Although I do suppose that some of the things that we're gonna talk about later on could apply regardless of how strong you are, assuming that again, it has to be significant enough weight in order to get the bar to bend. But this is what you guys all want to hear. If you guys are power lifters, specificity is king. If you have access to kilos and it's not something that you want to think about, sure, just use the kilos. Use the kilos, be done with it. Don't worry about the pounds. Don't ever look back. And if they're just readily available, sure, do it. Me personally, I prefer the calibrated pound plates because the way that I like to warm up is like it's a lot more convenient for me. Those are like a crazy luxury and they're super expensive because their demand is not really high. Um, so in the meantime, I just use pounds. When I train, you know, I'm just telling you guys my perspective. When I train at zoo, we don't have a lot of kilos. So if you're like me and your gym doesn't have a lot, and I need like 6 reds if I'm gonna squat. You know what I mean? And let's say that's 12 reds, so 12 total. That I can affect 3 other people by me wanting to lift heavy versus letting everybody else use the plates and me just use pounds, which we have an abundance of at the gym. Um, like I said, you could debate Like, hey, these people aren't competing. They're only going to use one or two reds. Yeah, sure, Joey, go ahead and take it. At the same time, I mean, I guess I don't care as much. Also, I know how this is very important. You got to know how do the pounds affect like how do you taper from your pound weights, like you're lifting on pounds, into competition where you're obviously going to be using kilos. That is really important, and if you don't have a coach there to kind of like anticipate the changes, it could really throw you off. Um, but yeah, if you have access to the kilos and you're not gonna be bothering anyone, just use it. Like just use it and be done with it. Use what you're gonna use in competition. You wouldn't like basketball players wouldn't practice with a 7 foot rim. They're gonna practice on a 10 foot rim with a regulation size ball. You know what I mean? Um, preferably they're gonna try to play on a wooden floor, things like that. So that is something to consider. The specificity is always king. So the closer you can get to it, the better you should be, or at least the more accurate you can be. But like I said, or actually I didn't mention this yet, but some of the best in the world, some of the best lifters on the planet use pounds. Dennis Cornelius is one who I can think of. The reason why he's significant is because he has one of the biggest squats on the planet, and he uses pounds, and he trains out of his garage. He's dealing with a shit ton of bar whip. He might tell you that getting in a competition, it's a lot easier to control than at home. So if he can squat 850 for a triple at home, or 800 for a triple at home, whatever it is, going into a meet, that weight's gonna be nothing. You know what I mean? So you could look at it you could look at it in that sense. Um, it really depends on the person and how they squat. I would say if you're the type of person that squats with a lot of hip hinge, you're gonna prefer kilos. If you're the type of person that can kind of squat a little bit more upright and get a little bit more of a bounce. Um, I mean, I have a little bit of a bounce. I would say me and Russ have a little bit of a bounce. Then pounds might feel really good. Um, but you know, I think I think if anything, you should have if you like getting on a good bar can really help. If you're using like an Alico bar, for example, um, that is going to sort of nullify the difference in the plates that you're using. For example, I feel better squatting on an Alico bar, which is super stiff. It is the stiffest bar that I know of, and pound plates than I do using an Ohio Power Bar kilo bar and kilo plates. It is easier for me to control the Alico bar with the pounds than it is the Ohio Power Bar with the kilo plates. I think so. There's ways to kind of work around it. Um, I know that in the deadlift, for example, if you pull sumo, especially, pounds can be difficult to sort of control. If you fire off the ground and you start to slow, what happens is, due to the change in the speed, the bar whip can pull you down. I mean, this happens in meets on kilos also, but if you want to have more accurate training and you don't want to kind of have these weird patterns show up, then I think it'd be best to just try to use the kilos when you can. Safety, which we briefly talked about, is something that we need to consider as well. I know that for me personally, when I came exclusively from using pounds and I tried to use the Alico bar or kilo plates, my hips would be destroyed because it's almost like my body got so used to the way that the bar would bend. So like there's different like speeds at the point of my squat, where I'm kind of fast out of the hole and then I slow down a little bit. And when I slow down, the bar would kind of whip, and then I would feel a pull on my hips. I wouldn't feel this on the pound plates, but on the kilos, it was almost like the bar isn't gonna bend as much now, or the plates aren't gonna whip as much now, so I can't rely on that. So something else has to give, and it was, the point of contention, which is my hips, or my knees. My knees are pretty sturdy. I don't have any wood to knock on, but maybe this is wood. Maybe this is wood. But you guys get what I'm saying. So safety can be a thing if you know for certain. Like I am more likely to strain my pec on benching on pounds, especially if I have 4 plates on the bar, than I am on kilos. Um, I've sort of adapted over time. I just have a shit ton of control in everything that I try to do. Um, so injury is not something that I really am too concerned with, but 100% I know there's people out there that feel like they bench only on kilos, and then when they go bench on pounds, they hate it. They absolutely hate it. They're in the gym complaining about it. So just to kind of wrap this up here, specificity is king. Like I said, if you have the kilos and you're a serious power lifter, just use them. I think it's going to help you in the long run. I have like John Keiko right now. If you guys follow him, he is training on pounds, and I think the plan is to move back to kilos. So he'd have to travel to a different gym when we get around March, April to get ready for Worlds. Um, but like I said, I've had great success with lifters in the past, um, using both, using pounds or using kilos. One example that comes to mind is in the gym. I believe Russ squatted 730. It may have been mildly high. I'm not sure. I think this was leading into Worlds or Nationals. Um, but I knew that I was not going to put 733 on the bar in the meet because, like I said, like he squats like me. There's gonna be a little bit of there's some things we need to account for, cutting weight and just the difference in equipment and the way things feel. So on calibrated plates, I like to keep it around the low sevens, 710, something like that, 712, something 717. I think would have been the top end for something like that. So, just because somebody hits it in the gym, if it's not on comp equipment, whether this goes for the bench they're using, whether it's a fat pad, regular pad, whatever, you gotta have somebody there, or you have to know that if it's not calibrated, when you have those plates where the paint kind of wears away over time, that there's going to be a difference. Um, there's going to be a little bit of a difference in, uh, you know, over time, like the paint wears off, the weights are going to weigh a little bit less. They might get chipped, whereas the kilos are made out of a better quality metal. It's less likely that those things are going to be a factor. So there could be little differences here and there. If you're a smaller lifter, it might matter more for you. I know 5 pounds is a big difference for much smaller lifters. So you want to be as accurate as possible. So yes, if you have the kilos and it's not a problem to use them, I say go ahead and use them. If you don't have access to them and you only have pounds, you can do just fine on pounds. You just need to be aware that there could be a difference on meet day. If there's an injury risk, then you got to kind of identify what. Like I know for me, I'm better off training on like non-specific competition equipment for deadlift because it's just safer for me to do my volume and stuff. Um, versus if I'm using the kilos all the time, it's just hell on my back. And it really starts to affect my quality of life, which starts to affect my other lifts. So for me, I make a compromise, and I use like Texas Power Bar pound plates for deadlift, because for me, something is better than nothing. But yeah, that is something to be determined. Um, but like I said, there are literally world champions that do both. I promise you, you can do fantastic on both. It is not going to make or break your prep. It may make your life a little bit easier, especially when picking numbers and just to have better expectations. Um, but one last thing is like you might see that your training numbers on kilos are a little bit um, closer to what you might hit on meet day, and the peak might be if you're using kilos, you might get a smaller peak than if you're using pounds. Um, or vice versa. It really depends, and it's something that you're not going to know on your first try. You got to kind of go through the process a couple times to really understand how you behave and how how are you going to react to changing equipment and things like that. So, yeah. If you really hate kilos, you could just do one. You could do like what I do, just like take one heavy session before your meet in that last month on the kilos, just kind of see what's up and then go back to it. But yeah. Alrighty, guys. I hope you're able to take something away from this. I hope that you know, I hope this helps because like people are talking about so much. It's really not that big of a deal. Um, if you have the kilos, use them. If not, you can make do without it. If Keiko tells me, hey man, I can't get to the other gym, I'm gonna have to use pounds. We'll make do. We're gonna be fine. It is not going to dictate whether or not you have a good meet. I mean, if you're very inexperienced, it can, but you should be all right. Just be smart, stay in the pocket, take what's there, and regardless of what happens on meet day, if you're always taking what's there, you're never gonna fail. So, Alrighty, guys. Let me get a hashtag. Take what's there in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I just did a podcast yesterday. It was a great podcast. I gave away some crazy concepts and keys and things like that. I really think you guys are gonna like it, and I'm excited to share that with you. PR Breaker giveaway soon. I think I got it in the mail. It's just at the mailbox. I gotta go pick it up. And yeah, that's it. Alrighty, guys. Thanks. Peace.